All right, so this is a census from like the early 19 like 40s or something like that. Okay, April 1st, 1940. All right. And this is my father's father census. He was a son on here, so he couldn't have been no more than like it says right here 5 years old. When you look at the later census, he's a laborer. All right, and his father is a farmer. And his mother is a Mandy. She's a housewife. So you can see right here, this stuff right here is important when you want to keep records on your family in the past, because like when you look at races on here and you look at races on the other census, they never say Hispanic, they never say non-Hispanic, and they never say Latino. So those people weren't around us during those times. When you talk about Puerto Ricans and stuff like that, they weren't around us. Because when you look at the recent census from like I think what 1950, they only had like on their Japanese. I think they had on their American Indian, Filipino. They didn't have Puerto Rican on there. They didn't have Dominican on there and stuff like that. Like all these new races, they didn't have them on there. So these people weren't around us. So I just want to talk about this. I did a video on the Constitution already, but I want to talk about ex post facto law, and how we can use it for our benefit when talking about securing a path for freedom, and freedom from courts, freedom from law enforcers, freedom for all de facto establishments and de facto institutions. Um, I see this like when a judge or an attorney, because most of the attorneys today, they're not going to help you. They are not going to help you. If you even speak up in a tone that says like I have a record that may admonish me from even being here, like a record on immigration, because a census is a record on immigration. A census is proof for an exhibit that you may have had a passport. You may have just arrived on the land. You may have already been on the land. It's a question to an inquiry. It answers everything that may be up for question. All right, so it's a question for an inquiry. Um, and I say this with wholeness because like a lot of people will think like we don't need to collect records because we want to go paperless. We shouldn't have computers. We should be outside enjoying life. Um, that's kind of the overall thing when you come around black people. I'm not one who studies that idea because, like, you're always having people out here making it bad for the next person. So you have to have a turtleneck on and you have to have long johns on. Um, this idea that an ex post facto law and the Constitution is kind of like not being used and it shouldn't be used. Like, let's skip all that matter. There's ex post facto laws everywhere in the government today. Um, when you look at government, they don't even meet on December 1st through December 10th. They don't even do that no more. These people are on Congress Hill every day using funds and resources. And these people are not even from here. They probably weren't even on the census back then. So you have to wonder, like, why are these people on the news outlets every day um, talking about wars and stuff like that and starting wars? Like you look at AOC from New York, like her race is not even on the census. And this is from like 1940, 1950. So imagine what 1900s would have been like. Like who were they only counting? Just whites and blacks? Because she's certainly not a white. Okay, so if she's a Latino, then why is she not on the census? So that just lets me know like she wasn't here or she wasn't from that town. Cause like if you have a town note and you're printing them, you want to use less space as possible and you want to make sure it's accurate. So you know who is everybody in the town. So if it's a small town, then everybody knows each other. So if it's white people there, that means the black people in that town brought them over and they were already mixing. All right, so this goes the same thing for towns where have Filipinos and Japanese. So if it's a Japanese in your town during that time and you've been there, it's probably because you may have knew them or you probably have mixed with you. Your people were probably already mixing back then. So that's one idea to take into consideration. But like my thing is this with ex post facto laws. This is an instance, and I'll just close out. You get in a situation where you have to go to court, and this is for like a immigration question, or this may be for like a criminal proceeding. You want to have a census with you from the 1900s, like the furthest back you can go, and you can see there doing a hearing, a pre-hearing, because I always say like you want to knock it out as soon as possible. Judges, their thing is this: they want to let you go free, scot-free, but pre-hearings and pre-arraignments, they like to say that's it's not the time for me to see your evidence. That's what they always say. Like it's not the time for us to see your evidence. Your evidence is not in question. And so if you keep belligerent them like here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is during the pre-hearing, what they'll do is they'll call you a belligerent and then they'll like confiscate whatever you have or like elude your rights. So like this is why it's always good to be patient. But like one thing I noticed is like during a hearing where they look over all your evidence, like one thing to do is like show them all the records that you have. Like don't leave any question out. And then whatever they're asking for, give that to them too. Because you have to remember, if you're in a judge's chamber and there's a session going on, 9 times out of 10 likely they're recording the hearing. So if they're recording the hearing, who's going to look over that video once it's uploaded and the case is kind of like proceeded? Like who's going to look at that video? So this is why it's always to have good language as well. Like I always let them know, like if it's ex post facto, like you're saying that I need a doctor's note or something like a doctor's recommendation, I'm going to contact the senator. I'm going to contact the House. I'm going to contact the House representative. I'm going to contact both the state and the federal. But what I'm most likely going to do as well, I'm going to contact the president and I'm going to contact the UN. Because what I notice is like, you go back to these questions that the judge offers. It's like, do you have a doctor's recommendation? When did having a doctor's recommendation even come into the question of whether I was a citizen here before you or whether I am just arriving? That's what has to be questioned, because like a lot of these judges, they just come up with ways they'll benefit them in the long run. All right, so they're trying to get benefits from a doctor in the form of a inquiry or question that they're posing as a requirement. So they're making a pact right there between the judge and the doctor, and the judge and the doctor is going against the plaintiff. Like they've made the plaintiff a defendant. So, and it's always ex parte as well when you in pre-hearings and pre-arraignments. It's always ex parte, which means they don't have to hear anything you have to say. They just have to decide on what their next motions are going to be. So I just look at this like an ex post facto law. It's very important that we notice in our language. They can't pass a law that's already on the books that benefited the overall population of people. So it's called after the fact. All right, so why are you making laws when there's the 1786 Treaty of Peace of Friendship already on the books? I'm not a subject, so why are you making your law override my law, my nation's law? Okay, because every state has a constitution. So you're making statutes and codes when the supreme law of the supreme law of the land is the Constitution and the treaties. Um, ex post facto law. Let's just read this here. In the Federalist number 44, James Madison asserted that ex post facto laws are contrary to the first principles of the social compact and to every principle of sound legislation. In the Federalist number 84, Alexander Hamilton further justified prohibition on ex post facto laws by arguing the creation of crimes after the commission of a fact or the punishment for things which, when they were done, were breaches of no law, and the practice of arbitrary imprisonments have been in all ages the favorite and most formidable instruments of tyranny. So basically, what they're saying is that they don't agree with ex post facto law, but you also have to take into effect that these are federalists. So a judge is likely a federalist. This is why he don't want to hear anything you have to say about law, because he thinks like whatever he says is of sound mind. So you have to realize that even though that parties didn't agree with it, it was still on the books. And these are like, I guess you can say these are black men because they have black names. I'm not fooled by these images that they put out. I always look like, where are the rest of the archives? Like, if you can paint something, you certainly have a satellite because it's been preserved. So I would say this to that question. If you he does says first principle, so that makes a lot of sense too. First principle, because we can use the Magna Carta as a first principle. That way, I don't have to deal with any form of question from a person who hasn't passed an immigration test. Because just because you're over here, and this is why I use census, and this is why I use ex post facto law. If you're over here and you're questioning me in court, and you're a white judge, I would have to say, who is your town chieftain? Who is your town? Who is your town enforcer? Like who is your sheriff, and who was his sheriff? I would say I would bring it to a question. What was the last time you took an immigration test because you don't look like the founding fathers? I would say that. And so what they'll say is something like your speech is frivolous or something like that. Your assertion is frivolous. They'll say something like that. But like you also have to realize that, there are documentations out here that you can use during a Zoom call, like I have done. I put the picture up on my background of the Louisiana Purchase and the congressman during that time. So that I did do. So there's not a question of who was the founding fathers back then, because let's just pay attention to clues. Why is the Louisiana Congress of all black men during that time? They had a few mulattoes on there, but it was all black men. They had names like Leroy. They had names like O.J. Dunn. They had names like a bunch of names. But Leroy stood out to me. So you had like all these people who had black names and had black faces. What is the question about? So if you don't believe that the founding fathers were all black, well, here I have a Louisiana document right here from a purchase of land, and the original patent holders were black men. Okay, so I have that question answered. All you have to do is research on that. So, and you can just look at the speech on the picture itself. Okay, so it's not like if you get overall votes from a majority of black men, like don't that tell you like the other states where that were here, they were all black men as well? You're not going to just have a one all white all state. This is why I say pay attention to censuses. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at more censuses from other people, and I'm going to read the language on it. And I'm going to do more videos on it. All right. So let me come back with another video, and I will close out. And you all stay tuned for that rhetoric. So great peace. Yakoki.